This is Me, Final Project by Hannah Altman. First things first. My name is Hannah Altman, and I am a fourth-year health science major. I am currently applying to occupational therapy school starting next fall. This class has taught me so much about my own interpersonal communication skills and has prepared me for my future career, interacting with patients, their families, and my coworkers every day. I've learned some wonderful techniques not only for my professional life, but for my personal life as well. I have noticed a difference in my communication skills with my family, friends, and romantic relationships. Ultimately, this course has brought me many things to my attention about the different types of communication in my life, as well as learning how to improve them. After completing the assessment about social media in my life, I learned that I am almost on average with the amount of social media I prefer to use. I would rather interact in person, however, I don't despise social media. I enjoy using it in moderation, and I believe it is a good way to stay in touch with friends and family. After completing the assessment, your empathy quotient, I realized I had more empathy for others than what I thought. The average sum for females was 47, and my score was a 52. Empathy and sympathy are often seen as the same thing, but this course taught me how different the concepts are. Empathy is putting yourself in someone else's shoes and allowing yourself to feel the pain or struggles they are experiencing. On the other hand, sympathy is when we feel sorry for someone when they are going through a difficult time. It is important to remember that sympathy isn't a bad thing. However, empathy has a much greater impact. The Nonverbal Immediacy Behaviors Assessment taught me that I have very active and strong nonverbal skills. I am typically enthusiastic and I smile often. I didn't consider or realize that that was a nonverbal skill before and how much of an impact it has on relationships. I scored a 51 on the assessment when the average for college-age women is 47. Many consider body language as having a large influence on communication than words itself. My listening style assessment had 4 different categories: relational listening, analytical listening, task listening, and critical listening. For some, I scored lower than average and some higher. For instance, my score for analytical and critical listening were lower than average. However, my scores for relational and task listening were on average. Overall, I learned that I do not have the strongest listening skills, therefore it is something I need to work on. After completing the Forgiveness Granting Strategies assessment, I learned that there are multiple different areas or categories of forgiveness, and I was surprised to see how unique my scoring was for each one. 2 of the categories, minimizing the consequences of the transgression and benevolent forgiveness, I scored a 0 for the overall when the average was between 4 and 6. I can see this in my life, and maybe I should work on these areas in my life when dealing with forgiveness. Increasingly, I scored a 14 when the average was 6 on discussion of the offense. All in all, I realized that maybe I'm holding on to some past hurt more than I should. First impressions. When we first meet someone, we tend to jump to a conclusion about who they are based on what we notice first, and we can begin stereotyping. Stereotyping is not fair, and it is important to resist making assumptions based on looks or circumstances. Disconfirming communication creates a negative communication climate. I have noticed this in certain areas of jobs I've had, and it affects the climate of the job. This self-disclosure model allowed me to evaluate my own self-disclosure. I learned I'm a very open individual with little I don't know about myself. After doing the assignment about perception checking, I realized that words can be conveyed many ways. Before making assumptions, we should clarify by communicating with the other individual about their motives. Learning about the different forms of intimacy was one of my favorite topics in this course. Intimacy is a bond or a closeness in any relationship, not just romantic. Using proper email etiquette facilitates us in our educational and professional studies. It is important to introduce yourself, use proper spelling, use appropriate language, and many other things represented in the picture below. Recognizing and being aware of nonverbal communication skills will allow me to take advantage of them to benefit my personal and professional life. Knowing that posture can convey that I am either excited and hardworking or lazy and uninterested can allow me to flourish in my studies and future career. Another big one for me is eye contact. Eye contact tells another individual you are engaged, listening, and ready to learn. This course has taught me that not all conflict can be resolved. Therefore, it is important to learn how to manage conflict. A resourceful way to manage conflict is through Deborah Wider's Hatfield's 7-step plan. Define your needs, share your needs with the other person, listen to the other person's needs, generate possible solutions, evaluate the possible solutions and choose the best one, implement the solution, follow up on the solution. These steps will allow me to reach a win-win compromise with future coworkers and in my personal relationships. Having emotional intelligence allows us to understand our own emotions and others. This is important when interacting with others and maintaining relationships. I hope to take advantage of what I have learned about the difference between empathy and sympathy and build strong relationships at home and at the workplace. Understanding the difference between defensive and non-defensive communication allows me to recognize how I am speaking. Professionally, I practice using non-defensive communication skills to be more assertive instead of attacking other individuals to hopefully have a better outcome. Lastly, by realizing I struggle with listening, I can practice and improve my skills. There are different listening styles such as task-oriented, relational, analytical, and critical. I realize that I am a critical listener who tries to understand the depth of what the speaker is conveying before allowing them to finish. After learning this, I have already improved my listening skills with family and friends. This course has taught me a lot of skills to reflect on in my personal and professional life, and I am grateful for the opportunity, so thank you.